All right, well, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Sal Silvestre. I'm the founder and CEO of Coachmetrix. I'm excited to be here with you today, and thanks for joining me on this Friday morning or afternoon, or in some cases, evening, depending on where you are. Maybe it's even Saturday morning for folks that are dialing in from Australia. Welcome to the masterclass on expand your business, add more value, and compete with mobile apps that will disrupt the market. Let's get right into it because we've got a pretty action-packed, content-filled session today for the first 45 minutes, and then I'm going to hang on for an additional 15 minutes of Q&A for folks that want to go deeper on any topics that we're going to cover today. I'm going to keep everyone muted during the webinar or the masterclass portion of this. If you've got a question, please unmute yourself. Feel free to stop me. But then we'll also have some Q&A at the end. Here's our plan for today. We're going to talk about what I consider to be the critical trend that is disrupting the coaching industry today. We'll also talk about how Coachmetrix can help your business by doing really three things. Number one, measuring your coaching impact. Number two, providing you with a platform for your content and your brand. And three, optimizing a lot of the communication and other processes around the coaching conversation itself. And then we'll continue on hold, or we'll continue together for folks that want to hang on for some questions and answers at the end of the session. So here's my foundational question for all of us today. Really, I'm in a state of inquiry, always trying to learn about what's happening, the trends in our workplace, in our world, and especially around coaching. But my question for you and for us to think about today is, how will you respond to the changes happening in the coaching industry today so that you can remain, number one, relevant, and number two, competitive? And specifically, how are you going to compete in a world of what I call the Coach Plus app? I'll talk more about that in a minute. Coachmetrix itself started for me really back in 2011. And I'm an executive coach, leadership coach, do a lot of leadership training. And I started noticing some gaps in my own work. And the first thing that I started noticing as I was training and coaching more people is companies would invest in very long-term programs with me, and participants in the program wouldn't create an action plan when it was paper-based, or they would create an action plan that just wasn't really robust enough to drive change. So that was the first thing that I started noticing about my work. Second gap that I started noticing, I'll never forget, early 2012, 2013, I was working with a tech company in Denver, Colorado, and the chief security officer sat down at the first day of a long-term 7-month program, looked down at this great workbook I had on the desk, looked up at me and said, "I haven't used a pen in years." And that was like a brick wall for me. And so there's something here. There was something there then, and there continues to be now, especially with the millennials who are taking on more and more leadership roles in our workplace. And then the third trend was really getting asked by the VP of Human Resources for a client that we were doing work with. And she said to me, "Hey, how's the program doing? Are people making change?" And of course I said, "Yeah, I've got all these smiley sheets, all these coach satisfaction reports and facilitator reports after workshops, but I actually didn't have any real behavioral change data." And so these things started bubbling up for me, and we eventually built the first version of Coachmetrix that we used internally, and then 3 years ago launched it out to the public. What I want you to know is that Coachmetrix was built by coaches, and it's made for coaches. And most of all, we really want you to be part of this development experience. I really want to invite you into the process today and ongoing so that we can continue to build something that's unique and that's going to provide value and that supports the coaching industry and your practice. And most of all, allows all of us to make a bigger and more positive impact in this world. This is really important work that we're doing. So what am I noticing? I want to start by telling you a story about a coach. Let's call her Stacy for the sake of today's conversation. She's an executive coach, and she came to me a few weeks ago because she was concerned. And she was concerned because she met a leader at Salesforce, the CRM, multi-billion-dollar, 18,000 employee business created by Mark Benioff. I'm sure you all know of Salesforce. And so this leader came up to her, this is just a few weeks ago, and said to her, "Hey, Stacy, I've got an executive coach. I'm doing executive coaching." Naturally, Stacy's ears perked up because she's a coach. And she said, "Tell me more." And he went on to tell her that he's getting coached. Again, he's a mid-level manager, experienced, been with the company for a while. He's getting coached by BetterUp. And he's got this really cool app, and he's assigned a coach. And he's got 6 coaching sessions, and all of the coaching is done through video calls on the app. There's messaging, there's scheduling, there's frameworks and resources and articles that get delivered and reminders that get delivered through this app. And Stacy started to get concerned. And she started to get concerned not just because of this, but because of this exact experience is really sort of summarizing what's happening in the industry and some of the changes that are happening in the coaching profession. And there are a lot of them, one of which is the technology changes that are occurring and that have been occurring for quite some time. And I'm very proud to say that Coachmetrix was an early pioneer in the space, especially in the cloud-based field that involves behavioral measurement. And there's a number of other technologies, from general platforms to manage your business, to video conferencing, to scheduling tools, to e-learning platforms. Many of you are probably using some, or maybe even a group of those tools. Some companies are trying to do it all and sort of be the Microsoft of coaching, and others are more specialized. But the rise of what I call the coach plus app model, where executive coaching is being scaled across an organization, is what I think is what should concern most of us. It should concern all of us. And these companies are coming to the table with a really compelling message. They're raving about having ICF certified coaches, plus they have technology that optimizes the coaching experience, and they're able to go to their potential clients and their clients and say, we can demonstrate the results from coaching. That engagement that I mentioned at Salesforce is an engagement that should easily have been won by a coach like Stacy, or a coach like you, or even me. And my question is, how will you respond? How will you measure your success or prove your results to skeptical executives that are expecting results? My good friend Marshall Goldsmith says, people don't buy coaching, they buy results. How do you respond to that? And what core technology platform do you have that's going to compete? And I'm not really talking about a mix mash of stuff like Dropbox and Google Drive and email that basically just drive our clients nuts and crazy because they can't find messages and documents and frameworks that you've sent them. How are you going to provide a platform that optimizes the coaching process and also expands your brand, not the brand of a mobile app company or somebody else? And the way that I see it, and I might be wrong, this is Sal Sylvester's thinking, but the way that I see it is, I think we're nearing a crossroad where you can join a company and coach for a third-party company, and that's a very noble profession, noble way to build your business or to be part of the coaching industry. But I also think if you go down that route, you're going to be coaching at a commoditized rate. You're going to be building someone else's brand, and you're going to be using someone else's content. And if that's okay with you on all those fronts, it's an excellent avenue to go. I think the alternative is to partner with a company like us, like Coachmetrix, where you can build your brand, you can use your content, and you can have a platform that enables you to compete in this changing world and coach in ways that will expand your business and your name and your brand and your content. And I've had the great fortune especially the last 3 years as we built Coachmetrix, to speak with thousands of coaches, thousands at conferences and venues and demos and showcases. And I think there's some interesting things that are happening. I don't think all coaches are going to survive in this market. most of the coaches that I've met are doing amazing things and helping others navigate the complexity of our workplace and the complexity of our world. I've also found that coaches and even the coaching industry in general as a whole, they're the slowest to change. And my guess is that because you're on this masterclass today, you're probably more savvy and you're probably more aware of those changes. And that's why you're listening in. But I believe that as coaches, we must change before we have to change. And so I think that's how Coachmetrix can help. And I want to show you a few ways that we can help you and your businesses respond to the disruption in our industry and arm you with a platform that's going to enable you to do more of what you do best, which is to coach people and help them reach their potential, make a really positive difference in this world. And again, I want to ask for your help, your partnership, if you will. I want to invite you into this process. Help us build this and make this relevant, and also help us see what you're seeing. What are some of the changes and the trends that you're noticing in the marketplace? Give us that feedback and feed forward so we can make a difference together. And you can always send feedback to us at support@coachmetrix.com so that we're in partnership on this. But there's really 3 areas that I want to share with you today on this masterclass that can help you expand your business and compete against the mobile app companies that are, if they're not doing it well, they've got a good story around how they're doing it well. And those 3 areas that I want to focus on today is number 1, measuring your impact. Number 2, leveraging a platform that supports your brand. And 3, optimizing everything around the coaching engagement. All right. So it's really important. Let's get into the measurement piece, because I think this is my theory, my thought process is that the ability to measure, improve your impact as a coach is probably one of the most important differentiators in building your business and expanding your business. And if you're able to tell your buyers of your services that you can measure change, they'll likely find your service credible and reliable and something that they want to buy. And that's really the core of why we built Coachmetrix. And again, I want to remind you, companies don't buy coaching, they buy results. Now, part of the underpinning of Coachmetrix is we built this model, and it's loosely or very closely, I'd say, aligned with Marshall Goldsmith's stakeholder-centered coaching model. And last year, Marshall and I wrote a book called Stakeholder-Centered Coaching, Maximizing Your Impact as a Coach, to show how his methodology and Coachmetrix really go hand in hand. And I think what's unique about the methodology and Marshall's thinking are really 3 things. Number 1, there's an emphasis on stakeholders. In Coachmetrix, we call them supporters. And supporters or stakeholders are people who are impacted by the leader's behaviors. So the coaching process expands beyond just the coach and the coachee and also includes those additional stakeholders. Number 2, the methodology emphasizes feed forward. So those stakeholders are involved in a process where they're giving that coachee feedback and feed forward about how they can change and improve in the future and do something about their future. And then number 3, the methodology, and part of what underpins Coachmetrix is there's a focus on both behavioral change and perception change. It's one thing to change a behavior. It's a completely different thing, and I would say way more complex for a leader to change how other people perceive them. So part of how Coachmetrix is built is around the stakeholder-centered coaching methodology that really has sort of 5 key requirements. Number 1, a leader gets clear on what they want to change. Number 2, they go public with that change so other people know what to observe. Number 3, they build an action plan based on input from other people. Number 4, they consistently follow up with those stakeholders or those supporters. And number 5, they measure their results. And so that's the underpinning. I just want you to have that background because all of that is part of what we've built into this, into Coachmetrix technology. And I'm saying all of that so that you can go to market with a solution to expand your coaching business by being able to measure your impact. All right. So with all of that said, I'm going to flip over to Coachmetrix and show you a few things so that you can see how Coachmetrix might potentially work to help expand your business. And I'm on basically the landing page when you sign into the Coachmetrix, and each of these different tiles represents a project. And a project to us is, it could be a one-on-one coaching engagement with one leader. It could be a one-on-one coaching engagement with a group of leaders. It could be a leadership development program, really almost any form of development program that you're running. And part of how Coachmetrix can help you, again, we're really talking about measuring your impact as a coach. That's the first differentiator. And I think one way to expand your business is through the goal setting process or getting those goals online. And I think having your goals online adds transparency and accountability to the process, and you're much more likely to help people make change. So inside of Coachmetrix, and I'm in here as a coach, and Greg Smithy is one of the people that we're coaching, there's some space for Greg to create an action plan. And the nice thing about creating the action plan is, again, it's online, so it's transparent, more ability to create some accountability. And it's very simple to create an action plan. And when an action plan is created, it might look something like this. There's a goal statement up front. There's a behavioral statement that is ultimately the survey item that will be part of the ongoing feedback and feed forward that stakeholders are providing. And then any additional detail that's in here. So you might include action items or support needed. You can upload images. You can add video. You can really make that action plan dynamic. And then inside of here is the ability for the coach to comment on that participant's goals. So in terms of expanding your business, there's an opportunity here for measuring impact, but also checking in with your client in between coaching conversations or coaching sessions. So that the first step is really getting that goal in place. And then back to that measurement methodology, part of what we think is really important, and again, part of how you can expand how you think about coaching, is making sure that your participant is calibrating their action plan with their manager. We know that a manager plays a really key role in helping create behavioral change. And we don't want to get to the end of a coaching engagement and say, great, Greg changed in all of these areas, but he focused on all the wrong things. So Coachmetrix allows either you as the coach or the participant to share that action plan. It goes out via email to anyone that the participant chooses. It could be their manager, it could be their stakeholders, it could be pretty much anybody. So that calibration process can happen. And again, as you're thinking about building your proposal, you can talk about, hey, we've got this system that allows us to create online action plans. We can share that action plan with a participant's manager. And all of a sudden now we're expanding our business beyond just the one-on-one coaching conversation. So Coachmetrix is going to allow you to get those goals online. It's going to allow you to calibrate those goals with the participant's manager. And then when you're ready, Coachmetrix will allow you to start that ongoing feedback process. And we call it pulse feedback. In the stakeholder-centered coaching world, it might be referred to as a mini survey, where you might have a couple of mini surveys, maybe in a 6-month or 12-month coaching engagement. We tend to think in terms of more pulse, so more often, but Coachmetrix allows the coach to basically automate that pulse feedback process at any frequency that you want. It could be every 30 days, every 45 days, every 60 days. Maybe it's twice a year, every 180 days, whatever your methodology is. But what you're seeing here is on the horizontal axes, in this particular engagement with Greg Smithy, we've got 6 rounds of pulse feedback, and we're measuring Greg on a scale of -3 to +3, where 0 represents no change. So when we see these bar charts that rising above the 0, that means Greg's improving, and negative scores means that Greg is getting worse. Hopefully that's not going to happen in our coaching. And we found that we're mostly producing very positive behavioral change in our work. So the pulse feedback process can be automated. It's very easy to automate the process. As a coach, you can do that. The participant does not have the ability to do that, but you can schedule the frequency and you can schedule when you send out that first or that next round of pulse feedback. And then you also have the ability to send out immediate pulse feedback requests. And the participant and the coach have the ability to do that. So if Greg's working on creating open dialogue during team meetings, he might have a meeting, leave his meeting, open his mobile device up, click on request pulse feedback, select the people that were in the meeting, and then send out that request. So that pulse feedback process is a way to measure behavior change. And in most coaching engagements, we get sort of stuck at the coach satisfaction level of measurement. And that's an important measurement, but it's not measuring whether our participants are actually changing. And what the pulse feedback mechanism here allows you to do is measure whether people are changing, not only from the perspective of Greg, because Greg will take a self-survey as well, but also from the perspective of the people who are impacted by his behaviors. And guess what? Greg doesn't get to stop focusing on that change until other people tell him he's changed. So what we're doing is we're helping Greg create not just behavior change, but also perception change, because people are reminded consistently through several rounds of pulse feedback that Greg's still working on these behaviors. And in addition, the supporters, the stakeholders have the ability to provide feed-forward comments. So they're giving Greg ideas on how to change that behavior in the future. All right, so that's really the first area to expand your business, which is around measurement. And there's an important component in here that I also want to make sure that you see, because I know we've got a lot of people on this masterclass today that are using Coachmetrix, but you might not know about this feature. Your supporters, those stakeholders, are really critical people, and we want to keep them enrolled and engaged throughout the process. A best practice in the stakeholder-centered coaching methodology is to make sure that your participant is actually having conversations with their supporters on a regular basis, like literally every 30 days. And that's probably more important than anything else, is going back to those supporters and say, hey, I've been working on creating an open environment of communication. How have I done in the last 30 days? That's the feedback. And what do you suggest for the future? That's the feed forward. Coachmetrix also allows either the participant or the coach to engage with those supporters directly. There's a send supporter email button you may not be aware of above your supporters section on the dashboard. And you can send your supporters a welcome message. There's a drop-down email that pre-populates a follow-up message. So in between pulse feedback rounds, either the coach or the participant can send an email from the participant to say, hey, remember, I'm in this coaching program. I value your feedback and feed forward. Please keep doing that. So that's one other feature I wanted to show you, and also to remind you that this data is going to show up real time as that pulse feedback comes in. All right. So we've got 3 areas to cover on how to expand your business. The first area is measuring your impact as a coach. Again, I personally think this will become a differentiator. And when you look at the mobile app companies that are out there, they're showing evidence of how their app plus coach model is changing behavior. And I think as people get more and more educated on that competition, we're all going to need a methodology and some level of measurement beyond coach satisfaction. Coachmetrix offers behavioral level measurement, which, if you are familiar with the Kirkpatrick's model or have an organizational development background, it's really a level 3 measurement. All right, so that's the first way. The second way in which Coachmetrix can help you expand your business is really by having a platform that supports your content. So instead of working for another company that has their content, or maybe you have maybe you've got a hybrid business model, this model gives you a way to magnify your own work, your own brand, how you do things. And we built a feature in Coachmetrix called resources to help do that. And resources are really a way. Let me explain what it is first, and then I'll give you a few ideas on how it'll help you expand beyond just the one-on-one coaching process. But a resource is really any combination of text, uploads, video, and images so that you can expand beyond the business. So I'll show you a few examples before I give you some other ideas. The building blocks of feedback, there's some content in here from a book that I wrote, along with a quick video that we've got out either on Vimeo or YouTube and some reflection questions. Or you might have um, a, a framework, like, for example, the SWOT analysis. This is simply a little bit of text, and it is a screenshot from a participant workbook. And now I've got a framework that I can share with a participant. Or another example, My Daily Questions. This is a Marshall Goldsmith tool. So we've got a document that we've uploaded here with a template. We've got some text, and we have a link to Marshall talking on YouTube. All right, so these are some ideas on what a resource is. But what this allows you to do ultimately is to build a library of your own coaching tools or framework or leadership development tools that you can use across all of your projects and expand the coaching conversation. So, for example, maybe you send out something as pre-work before a coaching session, or maybe you send something out as post-work after a coaching session, or you can use our collections feature, which really groups any of those individual resources into sort of logical groupings, and you build a little mini e-course. This one is on how do I coach team members effectively, and there's 3 modules. The building blocks of feedback that I just showed you. The feedback coaching conversation includes some text. It includes a short video and some reflection questions. Or the third one, alignment mistakes leaders make. Again, some text and some video. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to build a platform that's easy to use. I don't have to be an e-learning expert to use this thing, but I can get some of my content online in, a very easy to use way. And so that third way to expand the business is really around creating a mini course that you can give to clients in between coaching sessions. One of the things that I've been doing recently is video check-ins to my coachees. So now I'm checking in with my that's really a pretty bad picture of me as I look at that, but you get the point, right? I'm shooting these quick videos, putting them up either on Vimeo or YouTube, and you can hide them there, but you can also present them inside of Coachmetrix. And I'm able to send these videos to one leader or a group of leaders. So it's a really nice way to check in between your coaching sessions. So pre-work, post-work, mini courses, send frameworks, do video check-ins. And now all of a sudden in your proposal to clients, when you're doing that coaching proposal, you can tell your clients that you've got a library of resources. You can decide which set of that library people have access to, but that's part of the value that they're getting in their coaching. Your coaching is now moving beyond just the one-on-one coaching engagement. All right, so that's the platform that supports your content. Coachmetrix comes with a few examples, but they're mostly just examples to give you some different ideas. It really allows you to build those resources yourself in a very simple way by literally clicking on this plus button, giving your resource a title, adding whatever it is that you want to add in here, text, dropping in images, adding attachments, literally just putting a link to a Vimeo video, and you'll be able to create content in this library in not a lot of time or effort. And as coaches and trainers, we've got a lot of content typically. So getting that online also gives your clients a way to access content in between coaching sessions. All right. So the third area that I wanted to talk about is optimizing the coaching process. I personally don't think that the coaching conversation is going away. Now, there are people in our industry that have a vision of the future where they do think the coaching conversation is going away ultimately, and maybe, automated through artificial intelligence and machine learning and other things that are changing our world. I don't think it is. I think there's something human about the connection between the coach and the coaching and the coachee that really can't be replicated. And I might be wrong, but that's where my thinking is, at least currently. I do think, however, that we frustrate the hell out of our coachees with all of the inefficiencies around a process. One simple example is a pre-coaching session message that goes out ahead of time, where the coach emails a Word document. The coachee has to download the Word document, fill out the Word document, save the Word document, upload the Word document, email it back to the coach. Highly inefficient. Not to mention that there's really no track record. Like it makes it harder for the coach and the coachee to get ready for coaching. So I think there's some efficiencies that we can create, mostly around the communication of coaching, that Coachmetrix can start helping you with. I'm going to go back into Greg's account to show you a few examples. And we have a feature in here called discussions. And I want to show you what we've done with discussions. Discussions is really a simple way to have two-way interaction with your coachee. And you can do anything with discussions. You can upload your welcome letter and agreements. You can send out notes after a coaching session or send reminders before coaching sessions. And what's really nice about this, if you look if you title your discussions well, you can really create this sort of beautiful history of the coaching engagement. So for me as a coach, when I'm getting ready to meet with Greg, I typically like to review some of the coaching that I've done in the past and notes. I can go right to the discussions page. I can pull up notes from my previous conversations with Greg, and in a very short period of time, maybe look at some text. If we were in person and we did some whiteboarding, I might have uploaded some images from the coaching conversation. Maybe I included some attachments. But if I haven't spoken with Greg in a couple of weeks, this gives me a very quick way to look at the history of our conversations, our session in January, and maybe another one later on that month. And by the way, it allows Greg to do the same thing. He can go right to one location to get anything that you've shared with him. Maybe it was a check-in between a coaching session. Maybe it was those notes or even that pre-coaching session reminder. So discussions add a really nice way to add some efficiency to your coaching. Now, we've recently created some new features in the discussions to add even more efficiencies. And we created a tool called templates. And you'll see the tool in your left-hand navigation bar. But templates really allow you to build pre-messages that you might send out on a very regular basis. So, for example, when we're getting ready for a coaching session, we basically send the same exact pre-message before every coaching session. So instead of having to retype that or copy and paste it from somewhere, when I start my discussion, and if I built a template, I can simply select from existing templates. I'm going to select the coaching session reminder template. It auto-populates my subject line. It auto-populates my body. And then I can just make a couple of modifications. So I can change the participant's name if that's the case. If I'm the coach, I might write my name in here. But if I've got a team of coaches working on a client, at least clients are having a consistent experience because they're using very similar messaging. And once I click start the discussion, you can see that I can change the subject line and the date, and that discussion will be sent to my participant. So there's some efficiencies with templates. Some of the other templates that you might consider building, action plan, progress check-in. So again, if part of the way that you can expand your coaching is beyond that one-on-one coaching engagement, one of the things you can do is check in with your coaches between conversations. And if you build some pre-messages, it takes you absolutely no time to select that template, add in the participant's name, and they feel like they're getting a very personalized coaching experience from you. And it takes almost no time to do that check-in. So it's another way to really expand your business because now you're offering online coaching in addition to the one-on-one coaching and the tools and the library of tools and templates that you're providing. One of the other neat features that we built into the discussions tool is the ability to create a discussion and schedule it for some later point in time. And if you combine this discussion scheduler with templates, you could imagine building like a whole series of nurturing emails. So let's say you're starting a 6-month coaching engagement. Maybe you've got one email that you send your coachee every month throughout the 6 months that is really just a nurturing sequence. You can get all of those built as templates. You could select them, maybe personalize them a little bit, and schedule them to go out in advance right when you start that coaching engagement. So it's really a nice way to add a little bit of personalization and check-in between your coaching experience. I just got a couple of chat questions. I'll come back to those in 1 minute. I want to go through a couple of other features that will really help you optimize the coaching process. So you've got this discussion feature, so you can do some online coaching. You've got some templates. You can create that nurturing sequence. So really now we're starting to expand beyond that one-on-one coaching. The other thing that you can do, back to resources, I know that for our coaching engagements, we start almost every coaching engagement in the same exact way. So we built a welcome kit. And this welcome kit is the first thing that a coachee might see. It includes a welcome letter. There's a welcome video from me personally to the coachee. There's a process roadmap so people know exactly how the process of coaching is going to happen. We've got our coaching agreements in here. We usually kick off the coaching process with a 360 process. So we've got instructions on the 360 process, including a template they can download to add their raters and a heads up email they can send to their raters, and then another tool. So this is a nice way to add efficiency around your process. If there's some things that are repetitive or happen in a very similar way as part of your coaching process. And then I want to share one more feature, then we're going to start opening it up to questions. I know there's some questions in the chat box, and we'll take people off mute and get some conversation going in here too. We recently rolled out an assignments feature, and the idea of the assignments feature, very similar to templates, is for you to build basically milestones and tasks that really lay out specifically how your coaching engagement can move forward, so that you're basically creating a to-do list for your participant. It could be after each coaching session. It could be at key milestones throughout your engagement. But the idea is that you're building assignments so people always have clarity on what they need to do next. And then as they complete those assignments, they're able to check those off. So if I go back into Greg's account really quickly and I'll go into his assignments, Greg has some assignments here after his first coaching session, and these were the things he had to do. He had to identify his 360 raters. I asked him to review his welcome video from me, to review his coaching agreements, and to identify his, that's a duplicate task there. But as he finishes those, he can check those off. He always knows what he has to do. And eventually we're going to have some really nice reporting around this. We're in the early stages of this, but we have rolled out this new assignments feature, and we really want your feedback. Love to hear how we can improve that and pretty much every other feature. One final note is you have the ability to take notes in here as a coach. These notes are private to you, and they can include text, documents, uploads. At the project level, you can also take notes. And so you might add a contract here, or maybe some survey data that you've gotten if you're using other tools, things like that. So those are the three main ways that we believe Coachmetrix can help expand your business. Number one, measure your impact and measure the change, not just from the perspective of the coachee, but from the perspective of the people who are impacted by that leader. Number two, it's a platform that supports your content, your brand, your information. And number three, it's a platform that it will help you create some efficiencies around the coaching process. So before, I know people might have to sign off here in 5 minutes. I'm going to open it up for Q&A here momentarily. I really want to reiterate, this is a platform we built because we needed it. It's a platform built by coaches. It's for coaches. And we really want to work with you to continue to really have a bigger impact on the people that we work with, the businesses that we change, the organizations that we change, and ultimately making this place just a better place to be, better world to be in. So I'm going to start with some of the chat questions that have come in. And let me pull up my chat here. All right. So I had a few chat questions. And let's see. First question was, thanks, Philippa. Is this a true app that I need to download, or is it a website on the device? Right now, Coachmetrix is a mobile optimized website. So it works quite well on a phone or an iPad, or of course on your laptop or desktop. Right now, it is a website that is mobile optimized. It is not an app that you download from the App Store. We do see that at some point in the future, we will probably build an app to supplement the website. But right now, it is a website. Thank you. A couple other folks were asking about just this webinar in general. And yeah, we will be sending out a recording afterwards. I'm going to take it off mute. We have a bunch of people on this call today. I think well over 50 people today. So it might get a little bit loud. Actually, why don't we do this? If you've got a question, and we're now in sort of the Q&A part of the conversation today, but love to hear any questions that you have or observations that you have, or, what are some of the trends that you're noticing too? So feel free to take yourself off of mute if you want to open it up for discussion, and I'll keep everyone else on mute, but take yourself off of mute if you've got a question. I'd love to hear what you think, what's happening in your world.
So Sal, this is Philippa again.
Hello.
I had two questions. Number one, from what I understand, then all the communications that we're having with the client, they're going to receive that as an email, correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So for example, when you create a discussion, that's going to go out as an email. If you share a resource, that will go out as an email. And then inside of that email is the content that you wrote. So it looks like an email. And then there's a link that takes them right into the thread of Coachmetrix.
And then the second question, thank you. And then the second question is, from the point of view of operating a coaching business, I'm still needing another resource, and I'm actually using something called Coach's Console to do the calendaring and all the, keeping all the data and that kind of stuff. At some point, do you see expanding to the point where you become the solo, or do you have recommendations of other resources that interdigitate with what you're offering?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as a software, I guess we're a software development company at this point. We're always balancing who do we want to be, what is the need out there. We've heard very loud and clear that coaches want a calendaring application as part of Coachmetrix. So we're still kicking around how we're going to do that. And partially because there are so many great calendaring tools, as an example, Schedule Once, Acuity, and a number of other things. So we're always trying to balance what do we want to put into Coachmetrix. We believe that generally we want a simple to use, easy platform. We don't see ourselves becoming kind of the Microsoft of this world. So if you compared in the project management world, Microsoft and Basecamp, we really want to be more like Basecamp, where we've got a simple, easy to use tool where we're really focused on measurement. We do see calendaring as part of our roadmap. We see better reporting as part of our roadmap. We think there's probably a more social component where we can get people connecting to each other. That's all part of our roadmap. But we don't see just kind of replicating what other people are already doing. But I think the calendaring will probably be part of that, and certainly reporting.
Got it. Thank you.
Great questions. Really great questions. What else? What else is on your mind? Either a question about Coachmetrix or maybe even what you're seeing in the marketplace. Any other questions on your mind? Measurements, platforms,
Yeah.
scheduling. Hi, who's that?
Yeah. Hi, sir.
Hello. Hi, what's your question?
Hi, sir. This is Mark. Can you hear me?
Hey, I sure can, Mark. Hello, Mark. What's your question?
Sorry. Hi. I got a problem with the Wi-Fi. I'm back.
Okay. Here we go.
Right. Yeah. My question is, I'm based in Europe, so
Yes.
GDPR is a big thing.
Yep.
So do you have an option to remove all the data? If I lose a client, I needed to ensure that all data are wiped out in line with the GDPR requirements.
Yeah, we do. We just need we would need to do that manually, if you will. So if you lose a client and you need to delete that data, we would just do that for you. So we do want to be GDPR compliant and be meet those requirements. Especially, we know how important those are in Europe. So the short answer, right, Mark, is yes.
Yeah. Okay. Understood.
Yeah.
And one more question. Can I put my logo in terms of setup so the customer will see my brand somewhere on the application?
Yes. If you have a paid subscriber account, we will update your logo. Right now, it's a manual process, so you just need to reach out to our support team, send them your logo, and we'll get that uploaded for you. But we do really see that as important. Down the road, we want to offer more flexibility in terms of the branding. We really want to promote this as a platform for your brand, not for the Coachmetrix brand. So the answer to that is yes. If you're a paid subscriber, just reach out to support@coachmetrix.com.
Perfect. Okay. Understood. No problem. And also you mentioned, and I shut up. You mentioned perception feedback at the very beginning. I was not too clear what you meant by that.
The work, especially the work that Marshall Goldsmith has done, has really found that there's two changes that a leader has to make, and I'm mostly talking about leadership or executive coaching, or I guess it applies to any change really. It's one thing to change a behavior. So let's say I'm an aggressive leader and I'm trying to be a little bit more composed in my meetings. I can leave a coaching session and start to make some changes immediately. Maybe I had some insights or some new tools to start to implement. But the problem is people have a perception of me as a leader, especially if they've worked for me or with me for a long time. And changing how people see me, the perceptions that others have of me, is often much more difficult to change than changing the behavior itself. And so the only way to change that perception is to let people know, one, what you're working on, and then two, to follow up with them on a consistent basis. And Marshall Goldsmith has some great data on this in a Harvard Business Review article that really lays out some of his research, and it's been tested with hundreds of thousands of other people, and the research says the same thing. When leaders go through a development process and then they don't follow up with the people who are impacted by their behaviors, they very rarely change how other people think of them. So that's the perception and behavioral change reference that I was talking about. And what we want you to know is that the Coachmetrix platform is built to help that leader change behavior, but through that pulse feedback mechanism to really help other people see that leader's still working on that change. We're still getting these pulse feedback requests. They're still following up with us through messaging. And because of that ongoing process, we're also helping that leader change how people perceive them.
Fantastic. This is super interesting. Thanks, Al. Really interesting.
Great. Thanks, Max. Glad you could join us today. All right. We still have a little bit of time. If anyone has any other questions or what are you noticing? I know we've got folks from all over the world. You could hear Max's, some of the needs they have in Europe are slightly different than what we've got here in the States or in Australia or in South Africa. One what's on your mind today, especially as it relates to staying relevant, competing in this changing world. Any questions, any observations that come to mind for you?
Hello, Sal. This is Guillermo.
Hey, Guillermo. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. One of the challenges that I have found with the tool for my clients is actually the one on the most, one of the most useful features, of course, is the pulse feedback.
Right.
And it's always a struggle to get people to participate. So when we send the pulse feedback, I always tell my clients also reach out of Coachmetrix with an additional email, with an additional conversation in the hallway, encouraging people to participate in your pulse feedback, because people are busy and participation, even when we know it's very fast, is usually pretty low. What is your experience on that? Are there any ways or best practices or systems to fix that?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And you're not alone. Here's what we found. We used to run our pulse feedback every 30 days in a coaching engagement. We've come to realize that's too frequent. We're getting much better supporter engagement at the 45-day mark. So it gives people a little bit more time to make that change, and for those supporters to see that change.
Okay.
So one, the frequency matters. We're playing around right now with 45 days. That seems to be a sweet spot. So I would say do that. I think the most important thing you can do is have the participant verbally enroll their supporter, their stakeholder, before they ever even add them into Coachmetrix.
Yeah.
And to say, hey, supporter, I'm in this leadership development program. I'm working on fill in the blank. Will you please provide me with ongoing feedback and feed forward over the next 6 months or whatever your time period is, so that there's a verbal conversation first, and then the ongoing conversations that you're mentioning. And I would maybe push you a little bit further to say that it really should almost become like a requirement of how the coaching happens, because it's really through that in-person or over the phone engagement that's really going to help change those perceptions. So it's a very important part of the coaching process, but with the verbal enrollment up front and then the ongoing verbal follow-up, you'll see much better pulse feedback engagement from those supporters.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I love the idea of the verbal enrollment. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. We had a question over chat. Is there a limit to the number of 360 feedback sessions for coaches or best practice? I'm not entirely sure of what that question means. Usually what happens,
this is Frank. Sorry.
Oh, hey, Frank. No, that's okay.
That was my question. I was just trying to sort of think through, having not really used this, but I've got clients coming on to the platform. Is it over the course of the engagement with the coachee, or is it even past that? Is there sort of a natural limit to it?
Gotcha.
That was really what my question is.
This is a really great question because I think it potentially is another way that you can expand your coaching engagement. So yesterday, we just graduated a group of 8 people from a 7-month leadership development program. And we're doing 4 rounds of pulse feedback in that engagement. And the last round is extending beyond the end of the engagement. So we like that model because, number one, it gives you a reason to check back in with your clients.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you a reason to have them re-engage into Coachmetrix and really become a stickier part of their development process. So, I think you can do whatever works best for your methodology, but there's a lot of value in giving people access to Coachmetrix beyond your coaching engagement. And you could even build that into your proposal. So imagine your coaching engagement. It's a 6-month engagement, but They have access to the app to the tool for 9 months, and maybe there's another check-in that you've got. So it just gives you a reason to reconnect with that client.
Okay, thank you.
We do like that. Coachmetrix does not limit you to the number of pulse feedback rounds that you send out. It's completely up to your methodology, and you can also adjust the scale. So sometimes coaches will use the same scale that they're using for a 360 to a 1 to 7, 1 to 100. We like to use the negative to positive scale. It's in line with the stakeholder-centered coaching methodology that Marshall uses. That tends to work best in our engagements.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Frank.
Sal, this is Philip. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead, Philip. I was going to say, I think we have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
Do you, by any chance, have any proposal language that would be helpful to sort of cut and paste into a proposal regarding these kinds of things? You know, how you're going to use Coachmetrix and what would be recommended?
Yeah, we have a number of resources, and we're going to try to build something, I think, internal to Coachmetrix to make this more accessible. But we've got some sample proposal language. We've got a video. We've got a pitch deck. We've got a logo. We've got a demo script. So we have a number of supporting items that we can send you. Right now, we're housing all of that out on Google Drive, but we can give access to you. We can give you access to that without a problem at all. If you just email support@coachmetrix.com, we'll get a link out to you. If that's
awesome. Something. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Great question. You know, I think it's interesting. What we found with Coachmetrix is generally we think the tool's relatively easy to use. And by the way, we love your feedback. When you've got a pain point, we love to hear about it because we want to make it easier. But we also know that participants already have their own process, and many times it's paper-based. And sometimes just making that shift to getting some of those processes online is challenging. It's not hard. It just takes a little bit of time. But some of those resources that I just pointed out, we're happy to provide for you. I had a question. What's the name of the article I mentioned about Marshall Goldsmith? The article in Harvard Business Review is called "Leadership is a Contact Sport." Leadership is a contact sport. So you'll see the data there, and it was data that was originally research done, I think, with originally 8 companies, and now it's been validated through hundreds of thousands of other survey items as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Folks, it's been a pleasure working with you. Listen, I think we're doing some important work here individually and collectively. And thanks for being part of this conversation today. Thanks for being part of this community. Again, we really want to invite you in to help us build something great, help us make a bigger impact. So please check out Coachmetrix. We also run demos just about every Friday. So if you decide you want to get into a trial subscriber account, which is good for 30 days, check it out and then get on one of our demos. And we really want to help you out with that onboarding process. So reach out with any questions, pain points, feedback. We love it all. We love to hear from our customers. We can't promise we'll make all the changes that you ask for, but we promise we'll listen and try to understand where this industry is going and create something great. So thank you all very much for joining me. And I look forward to staying in touch and staying connected. Thank you.